I'm Michael Shearer, and this is a recording of a book I've written, the true story of what happened when my son Kez and I tried to walk the Camino de Santiago in Spain. It's called Walking a Rainbow. This is chapter 1, Novices. My son, Kez, was always a canny kid. I remember an incident from when he was about 6. I'd finished marking, I'm a teacher, about half an hour before closing time at my local pub, and wearily pushed it all aside to nip down the road for a swift pint. I'd only reached our front door when there was a wail from the bedroom. "Dad." The 2 syllables is always a bad sign. I went up. "Can you tell me a story, Dad? One of your ones?" "No, Kez. I've got to go out." "One from a book then, please." Okay, but it'll have to be short." I reached down Kipling's Just So stories and flicked through to find the shortest, less than 1 page. I read it out and shut the book with a dramatic snatch. "Is that it?" "Yep." "A bit short?" "Some stories are long, Kez, some stories are short." "Can I have another one then?" "No, Kez, I have to go out urgently." "Where are you going?" "I'm going where flamingos fly, where pelicans breed, where mermaids swim in the swarm surf and blow kisses no man can ever forget." "Oh, right." I moved towards the door. "Dad?" "Yes, Kez?" "While you're there?" "Yes, Kez?" "Could you buy me a packet of crisps?" Smart ass. Kez had always been precocious in conversation. I suppose it's what you might expect of the son of a philosopher brought up in a house containing 10,000 books and where the main activities are reading and talking. We have no television. I remember him at 7 addressing a group of visiting undergraduates. Late, the students fresh back from the pub, on the subject of the existence of God and shutting them all up. "But if you haven't got something which explains everything," he said, "then you haven't got anything which is explained." Leibniz and I think Schopenhauer said something similar. Kez was 9 when we did this walk across Spain. We hitchhiked from our home in Essex through France until we got to the French side of the Pyrenees, and then we walked over the mountains and then more or less west. As we walked through Angoulême, down in the southwest of France, we reached a river. "How about a break?" said Kez hopefully. All day it had been oppressively dull and humid, but the world had shed its weight with a recent shower. The very air had lightened. The sun's rays tingled with a fragile delicacy. The river was overhung with foliage, and its flow was a living green. Everything seemed airy and fresh, and each shade of green had acquired a sunlit tinge of lemon. The scene felt like a gift. We went down to the river, eased off our packs, and brewed up some tea. We were sitting quietly, contented, when a vision appeared, straight out of a painting. Round the bend in the river came a young woman in a rowboat. She was exquisitely beautiful, and seemed to focus the qualities of fragility and delicacy in the light and the landscape. She embodied the moment. She had long, dark, pre-Raphaelite tresses, and wore a dress of white lace, and rode with such grace and gentleness. The mystery was how such kissing touches of the blades of the oars could possibly impel the boat forward. She stroked the river, and in gratitude it carried her along like some exotic, lacy white leaf. We stared in admiration. Then, round the bend behind her, another boat. This time a burly young man, stripped to the waist, muscles everywhere. He whacked the boat along as if his intention was to assault the water. He didn't so much propel the boat forward with his oars as heave the entire river backwards. A great sweaty hulk of a man covered in tattoos. We watched the two and their contrasting styles. "Don't think much of your one," said Kes quietly. "It's all right for you, Kes," I said mournfully. "I shall have none of that sort of thing for weeks." "It's all right for you," said Kes firmly. "I've had none of that sort of thing for 9 years." We watched the vision of lace and delicate curves pursued by muscle and tattoos. "I feel, Kes, that this may be the moment to broach certain subjects which a father ought to speak about with his growing son." "Oh yeah," said Kes suspiciously, stirring his tea. "You haven't heard any unusual noises from the living room from your mother and I, on occasion?" "Once or twice." "Well, we have learnt to do it quietly. Perhaps you will have noticed the splodges on the wallpaper and ceiling." "Yeah." "This, Kes, is a result of the practice of tea-bag hurling." "Tea-bag hurling?" "Exactly. Allow me to demonstrate." I scooped out the tea bag from my green enamel mug and held it on the spoon at arm's length behind me. It fell off. "That's very impressive, Dad." No, that's not it," I said quickly, retrieving the tea bag, placing it on the spoon and flicking it out about 20 feet towards the river. "There, you try." Kes hooked out his tea bag and in one fluid movement cast it out over the river bank and far out into the river. Well, it just shows you what a little instruction can do. How we found ourselves sitting by a French river heading towards the Spanish border is a small story in itself. Let's go back a bit. When it all began is a moot point, but certainly a significant moment was the day I noticed a sketch of northern Spain pinned up on a board at the college where I work. It had an unsteady red line wiggling across it, like a very thin snake, or a trace of someone with a very bad heart. "Lecture," it said, "Pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago." It pulled somewhere inside. Imagine, to get out of all this work and go fishing, fix my overstressed heart. Now that would be something like. The yearning bred instant daydreams. I stood before the poster with my mind in a disengaged limbo. What was I to do with this feeling? Just a fantasy, surely, which escaped into the air in a regretful sigh. I had a class to teach, tedious admin to complete. Some other time, maybe, I'd come back to that hankering, sort it out, explore what it contained. Of course I would, but not now. The here and now hoovered back my straying imagination. I pulled away from the map like a magnet from metal, hurried on and forgot all about it. Some weeks later I was wandering around the college trying not to think about marking when I saw the map had "Today" scrawled diagonally across it. An echo of the earlier feeling, a foretaste of its content, wafted through me like seeing a rosebud and anticipating its scent. And besides, I thought, almost anything is better than marking, so I went along. In the hall I sat next to Roger, the careers officer, a large and ungainly man like a friendly bear. An hour later my feelings were more disturbing. As the lecture had progressed and the colourful slides flicked onto the screen, an uneasiness grew and strengthened into a feeling I did not recognise. Feelings are like tastes. Can I convey the taste of pomegranates if you've never tasted one? Or a soup, a bit of this, a nuance of that? Still, in the soup of my feelings, one bit like a lump of chicken was clearly identifiable. I knew that I was going to walk across Spain. No, stronger than that, it was already true that I had walked across Spain in the future. I knew something I could not logically know, and as a teacher of logic and philosophy, I found this upsetting. I had a memory of the future. I turned to Roger to see his eyes sparkling. "I'm going to do this walk," he stated firmly. "Yeah, me too," I replied. That evening I announced to the family over dinner that I was going to walk across Spain in the summer. I've always walked. I've done many of the well-known named walks in England, walked in Wales, in Scotland, in northern France, and the wonderful but difficult G10 across the grain of the landscape in the French Pyrenees, a walk which permanently damaged my ankles. "Can I come?" said Kez over the dinner table. "No, Kez. It's a long way, over 500 miles. Kez was only 8 at this time, and skinny and short for his age. "I'm not sure I can make it," I continued. "I'm overweight, nearly 39, and not very fit. I very much doubt that you could do it." Kez responded with a child's grief. He raised a spoon to his lips slowly, with a hopeless distaste, as if it were full of maggots. I'd never seen him so swiftly and completely down. I felt guilty. "I tell you what," I said to make myself feel better, "if you can prove to me that you can walk 500 miles, I'll take you." "How can I do that?" "Well, I'll have to get fitter, so I'll do some practice walks. You'll have to do them too. Long walks. If you make it, I'll take you, okay?" Kez brightened. I didn't want to take him. Getting myself along would be hard enough. I didn't want the responsibility of coping with a child as well. I thought that on the first long walk together he'd realise that he didn't want to go after all, and he'd voluntarily back out. I wouldn't have vetoed the thing. He would see for himself that he couldn't do it. So the next Easter found the pair of us kitted out with gear from jumble sales and army surplus stores, and walking from the outermost edge of London to Canterbury. I don't recall much about the 3-day trip. Unlike the Camino itself, I didn't keep a diary, except that the weather was foul. It was blustery cold, with frequent driving rain that slapped into our faces. The paths were muddy, and we slipped and slid our way along, heads down, ploughing into the wind. We walked hand in hand where we could, and every few minutes I'd have Kes dangling on the end of my arm as he lost his footing and started to splat into the mud yet again. We've tried to give up twice. The first time that we dismally admitted to each other that we'd had enough, we found a clear patch in a bleak copse with tangled ivy over stumps of trees, which we could use as a windbreak, and brewed up a last cup of tea. Kes drooped himself over the stove to keep warm and silently cried. No Spain now. Then a young woman came around the corner, cheerfully playing an Irish jig on a tin whistle. She joined us for tea, and soon we were up and walking with her. Then, later, after Ruth had walked ahead, we lapsed once more and gave up in earnest where the path reached a road and started to hitch the rest of the way. A Jaguar stopped, and the driver put our rucksacks into the boot. "Out walking, eh?" he said as we drove off. "Sure." "Where are you going?" "Canterbury." "Oh, fine." And after about half a mile he stopped. "That's the path you want," he said, gesturing. But he was out of the car already, unpacking our rucksacks. "Good luck," he said, shook my hand, and was off. We looked at our rucksacks dismally. Couldn't we even give up successfully? A group of walkers appeared from nowhere, and I explained that Kes was having a bit of trouble. "No problem," said one who looked like a shaved grizzly, and he picked up Kes's rucksack with one hand and strode off down the path. We hurried after him. Thus we reached Canterbury. At the next holiday we walked out of our front door together to walk to King's Lynn, 100 miles north. A week later we arrived, footsore but triumphant, and I was honour bound to take Kes to Spain.